I'm gonna just record
This
on
is
this
like a
computer.
Zoolander moment. It's the files are in
Okay.
the computer. It's so simple.
Where is it? It's all in the. Yeah. What does he say? I forget now. But okay, it's recording. Enough of the Zoolander
Okay.
references. This is serious. Uh, oh yeah, this is a video. Okay. Um. Okay, so who wants to start this thing? I'm gonna say you because it was your
Well,
idea.
okay, then I'll start. The first question: who are you?
Me? Oh, okay. Okay, well, I think before we get into who we are, I think maybe you should give like a bit of a backstory, or no, we gotta introduce ourselves first.
Well, I think name. Just a little quick blurt, like if we were all sitting around at the Windsor DNA meeting for the first time, how we would introduce ourselves to everybody would be, I guess,
That's a good
semi
idea.
suitable, and then we can get into more about ourselves as we go on.
Okay, sure. So my name is Sarah Sipkar. I live downtown on Bruce Avenue, just north of Wyandotte. I feel like if we were at a Windsor DNA meeting, always where you live is first. Like what part of the downtown, what street, and then what part of that street. Yeah, so I live in the 500 block of Bruce. I've lived in that house now for about a year and a half. But prior to that, I lived up on Dougal. Uh, Up on Dougal though was it was debatable whether I was actually quote unquote downtown because it was considered like south of Giles. Anyways, I say all that. I feel like that's a really particular thing to the downtown is that people really identify with streets and like the blocks of streets that they're in. But anyways, I live with my daughter. She's 5. She goes to Giles campus, which is in the old WD Low building. And we both were, well, I speak French. She's in French immersion. And yeah, we've been, I mean, I guess my current role is I'm a PhD student at the University of Toronto in the Geography and Planning program. I also just recently started my own business focused on small scale development projects. So I do some stuff like tiny homes in my backyard, which I'm sure we'll get into, and just thinking about the neighborhood and development a little bit more holistically. So I like to write blogs and do other stuff like that. And yeah, I think that's my little blurb for right now. Um, who are you?
So my name is Matt Walkna. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I teach French. And I live on Victoria Avenue, and I'm right past Erie Street. So again, like you said, everybody has their little particulars of where downtown is, and I do know that there are some people that even draw the line at Erie Street, and if you live past Erie, you're not downtown. But me and my family, we do venture downtown plenty. We like frequenting the coffee shops down there, and we try to go to a lot of the restaurants. So I do see myself as a downtown resident, absolutely. I don't know what else is interesting about me. I do have 2 children. We don't have a school specifically yet for them, but one of them does start school in September, the oldest. So, and then my wife, Christina, she lives with me and she's a nursing student and she's working half time and she's a mother time. So, a little bit of a hero in my life right now because man, she does a lot. But I guess that's my spiel about me in downtown.
Well, how's the pandemic been for you guys then? I'm just picking up off that with your wife. Like that must have been pretty intense.
It's yeah, you know what? The initial shock in March was about I had no tools and the daycares were closed and oh man, it was stressful trying to figure everything out. Christina, she did pretty good. She kept on going to work, so her schedule didn't change too much because she was considered one of the frontline workers as a she's a med tech. But into October, we started getting our grounding set because we knew and over the summer I got ready for teaching online and now during this lockdown with daycares open still and having a bit more experience of how to teach online, things are a bit more calm, and we have more tools in our tool bag really to take care of this. It must have been a little bit crazy for you back in March, and then again in
Mhm.
December when they announced the school lockdowns. I'm sure as a trustee,
Right.
which you didn't
Yeah.
even mention.
I didn't mention, I forgot about that. To be honest, I often leave that one off because I consider like my work and my political career like very separate. But yeah, I forgot to mention that I am a trustee for the Greater Essex County District School Board, which is the public board, your counterpart, Catholic, being Catholic. And Yeah, it's been that was an intense summer of a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations with our administration. I mean, normally teachers and administration tend to have the summers off. There's like a little, I'll say off, but there's a little prep on either side, but it's not as work heavy, right? But this summer was the total opposite for everybody involved. So trustees were, needing to be consulted, needing approval for things. I think I had like weekly meetings at one point. One of them was like 8 hours, so which is like our normal meetings are long, but for trustees, like that those meetings were starting at like 5, 6 o'clock and going till midnight. So it was a lot, but it needed to be done, and there's still a lot of work to be done there. So and yeah, I was experiencing it both as a trustee and as a parent who all of a sudden was stuck at home with a 4-year old. And I'm not, my mom is an ECE, I am not. So I have a lot of respect for educators because I just don't naturally have that skill set. I didn't go to school for that. So, all of a sudden having to, not just parent, but kind of teach a 4-year old was a lot. So I'm very thankful for the virtual school that we have right now. And, you know, it, even though it does require a little bit more from parents in terms of their involvement, I think having the structure, having the ideas, the activities, the curriculum set out, at least it gives me something to then be involved with, as opposed to having to like generate something for her to do and learn. So, anyways, we're kind of getting down the weeds in terms of education. I know we could probably chat about that all day, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. But that's not the reason for this podcast or this conversation.
No,
I should
and
fireside chat.
right, whatever we are gonna call it. And I think it's important just to let everybody know in case I don't want anybody
You have a
thinking we're just
candle, by
really
the way.
awkward people. But oh, there's some. I don't have anything fire wise. But we are on a bit of a delay right now because we are using internet and video technology that we are not normally set up for. So we're not super awkward. There might be some delay in talkovers, but we're going to try to do the best we can with the conversation. So hopefully it doesn't annoy too many people with some of the delays. But one thing I really want to know, and I think this is a big question, not just for people that live downtown and sometimes even here in Windsor, more so for the people that don't live downtown. They always want to know, well, why are you living downtown? Like I get it all the time, like especially from people in the suburbs. You could be living in South Windsor, LaSalle, with all these huge lots and nice peaceful tranquility. And why downtown? So what brought you into the crazy hustle and bustle of the giant big town city of Windsor?
Yeah, I think, that's a good question because I think there's an assumption that, especially if you grew up in the suburbs, which I did. I grew up in LaSalle and Amherstburg and went to school, Sandwich West Public School. That, there's a question of why would you move to a more urban setting and I mean, Windsor, even as an urban setting, I mean, we're not even as, our density is not even close to other cities like Toronto, things like that. But um, and I think there's also an assumption that, like, well, if you can afford a bigger lot, or if you can afford, a bigger home, like, why would you move into a neighborhood where, maybe the houses are older, all that kind of stuff. Exactly what you said. There's the parking is a little bit more challenging. Maybe you don't have a driveway, like all those things. I think, I moved downtown in 2009. So, it's been how long now? In my first apartment on the let. And I think that the downtown at the time, so I mean, this answer has kind of shifted, I think, over the years. at the time, I was like a very green university student committed to like environmental social justice causes, and I decided I wasn't going to have a car. And where else? Where's the best spot to live if you don't have a car? It's the downtown. There's actually now some research that I've seen that shows this, particularly on downtown Windsor. It's the most well served kind of like transit at the time, a decade ago. And I lived right on Olet, so the bus stop was literally right outside my house, and that facilitated me being able to get to the university and get to my retail job at the mall. And I was really drawn to like just like being more mobile via transit. I didn't have a car for like 3 or 4 years. I actually bought a house before I bought a car. I was committed to no transit for a while, and I just kind of fell in love with the hustle and bustle and the um, just the urban setting. And I know that, one of the things that I love is, the farmers market, being able to cross the border by just like, getting on the tunnel bus and not having to worry about, walking or sorry, driving down there, but you could just walk and, Detroit is totally available. So I liked the walkability. I liked the access, especially when you didn't have a car. I think over time now, why I live downtown is I really just love the people. I worked for 5 years in a role where I was connecting with a lot of residents through doing community gardens, through farmers market, through residents groups like the one we're going to chat about and things like that. And I've just really developed an awesome network in this neighborhood of and it's actually created a real sense of like security. I can walk down a street and like any street, I will know a couple houses, I'll know residents, and I can just knock on their door or run into them or see them at the park. And so now it's really become like a community for me. And it still has all those same benefits. I live less than a kilometer. I live 600 meters from the riverfront, so I take advantage of our gorgeous riverfront trail. Super close to the market, the capital, all that stuff. So um, yeah, my reasons have changed over time, but those are the main kind of reasons I think now. So yeah, same question to you. How long have you guys lived downtown, and what drew you here?
Well, I think we're on year seven. I remember based off of when we signed our when we re-upped our mortgage, and I think the 5 year mark before a year before COVID, the lockdown kind of just messed up my whole sense of time. I feel like a year turned into 4 or 5, so
Yeah,
it's
I don't even know what year it is anymore.
so yeah, it was a bit of a challenging 2020 to keep track of time. But however, um, yeah, I grew up in South Windsor, spent my whole life there. Parents ended up moving out to Bell River, and that was the last house that I lived in with my parents. When I was in university, I did University of Guelph for a year. I was at Western for a bit, and I really got used to not having a on taking the bus, and I love the freedom it gave me. I actually felt more free using a car and a bus and a bike than I did a car, because I
Hmm.
felt like I could do more with that. Using a car, you're kind of always anchored to just streets or to parking spots, and with the bike and the bus, like I can take a bike anywhere. I can take a bus somewhere, then walk somewhere else that I need to go to, and I don't have to worry about where I'm going to leave this giant hunk of metal and how much I'm going to have to pay for it. And when you're in university,
Hmm.
the $1.25 parking, it's kind of expensive. You're
Yep.
pinching every penny you can. So and I had a free bus pass at you both Guelph and Western, so I definitely took advantage of it. But after living in those urban settings and being used to going downtown to get things, and my experiences just visiting my brother in Toronto, I really enjoyed walking places and being close. So when me and my at the time fiance were looking for a place to rent, we started looking for places nearby walkable areas. And the three places that we were thinking about was downtown, Old Walkerville, and the University of Windsor. Just because I there as well and I knew the area, and we couldn't find something in our price range or something that we liked, but we ended up getting a little place right out in the Ottawa Street Village there, and We really enjoyed the being able to walk up and down Ottawa Street. We got used to walking and spending time in an urban setting like that. So when it came to time to purchase a house, again, we were looking for Old Walkerville. We wanted to keep in that area. We really like that area, but Old Walkerville, the prices at the time, we were putting bids in for houses at 169,000, which was at about our limit.
That's a steal now.
And that I know it's crazy to think, and it was just 7 years ago, but the prices started going up at that point. We bid for a house at 169, or actually 167.5, and our real estate agent told us, "You're crazy. That house is not worth that money." And we bid for it anyway, and we lost it by I think $500, but they offered cash or something. But at that point, I remember that specific house. At that point, the prices just went through the roof in Old Walkerville, and it priced us out. We stopped looking, and we said, "Well, where else are we going to look?" We really like the Old Walkerville feel. We like the walking, and we looked downtown, and we noticed that on Victoria, the size and the price was significantly cheaper. And at the time, it just made sense. So we bought a house on Victoria, not a huge house, but compared to some of the smaller houses in Walkerville, we feel like we got a large house, and we just got so used to walking downtown. We used to have conversations about, well, we'll move to Old Walkerville later, and now it's like,
Yeah.
well, downtown's great. We really enjoy being close to everything. We like the neighborhood. It's very walkable, and there's a lot going on, and when the festivals are downtown, we really enjoy that. Like, it's a lifestyle that we can offer our children that I never had. I remember growing up in South Windsor, always being bored, like there was nothing to do in the city.
Hmm.
But it's kind of that way, right? If you don't have anything to do at your house, there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
But here in downtown Windsor, there's nothing to do at your house. You walk to the park, go walk somewhere, and you'll
Yeah.
find something.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's a lot that the downtown offers that is maybe, I don't want to say like it's a well kept secret, because I think that's a bit of an overstatement, but I think there's a lot of things that you can really appreciate, and that's present in a lot of our neighborhoods, like in the core. And I was thinking about, as you were chatting, like I realized that like two of my best friends from high school actually moved downtown, and we all live within walking distance of each other. And one of their parents and my parents live in like River West. They moved after like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, 6 years ago, onto Cameron off of Gateway Park there. And it's funny because we've all kind of ended up like we all migrated from LaSalle back to the inner city, and we see each other all like quite often. I mean, not right now because of the pandemic, but we would, connect and go grab a drink, grab food and stuff like that. And I'm sure too, like you can, and I know that our Matt and I, both of our kids go to the same daycare, so there's just all these like really natural connections that I feel like happens when you're actually out and you're like walking around, and now you know people, and you go to the park and you see your neighbor and like all that kind of stuff. And I think you're totally right. Like, not that that doesn't happen in the suburbs. Again, this is an overstatement, but it's less likely from my experience. Like, it was more common to just, stay in your house. And some people have great relationships with their neighbors on like little cul-de-sacs in the middle of LaSalle. Like, I totally, I totally like don't want to downplay some of the, the ways that the suburban life can actually cultivate some of those really good relationships. But I just noticed how much more likely you are when you have a front porch, and when you're walking everywhere, and your daycare is around the block, and you're, and all that kind of stuff. And it just ends up creating these like informal networks, really, that allow for a lot of like I don't know, just a sense of like belonging and enjoyment of the space, really. Um so I don't know if we want to keep going. I know we had some like questions prepared.
Yeah. Well,
um
just quickly, I mean,
sure.
we can bundle these next two pretty quickly, because I think they kind of relate to each other. Actually, they directly relate to each other, and that's the first thing is like what are some of the concerns that you see downtown, that after living downtown, you've lived in two different areas, or you can argue, some people might argue, live downtown adjacent and now downtown, but
South Central is
you're
actually what it's called in the planning district. So I was like, oh,
sure,
now we're in
sure.
South Central. Anyways, sorry, continue.
But yeah, so along with those concerns, like, what are, if you have three things, you just found the Aladdin Robin Williams genie,
Mhm.
he's going to grant you three wishes. Same genie rules as Robin Williams. What would you do to Windsor, downtown Windsor specifically, to fix some of those concerns?
I actually just watched Aladdin again last night or 2 nights ago with my daughter. I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was like, it was long. Like I forgot how. Anyway, sorry. This is a. I digress. Three things that I would like to change, or three things that I would like to be different. Oh, I should have like thought about this question a little bit more. Um, I think one of them isn't directly related to the like material conditions of the downtown, but it more has to do about the narrative. And I wish that there was less of a stigma. I wish that I wish that some of the things that would happen downtown that people would understand their relationship to the issues a little bit better, and that rather than using it to stigmatizing the neighborhood as being unsafe or bad, like I actually can't even stand it when people say that to me anymore, and I uh, I admit I'm a bit passionate about this, but that really irritates me a lot. I think I would like people to see the neighborhood in an honest way, but to realize all the good as the dominant, like the dominant narrative, as opposed to um, yeah, we have homeless shelters. Yeah, we have transient people. Yeah, we have all these things, and I don't want to like we're never going to solve all of those issues in one shot, like with a silver bullet. And I think there's a complexity to the downtown that I appreciate a lot. And I also think it is a really valuable learning experience for example, my daughter who like interacts with people differently because of the neighborhood that she lives in. So I say all that to be like, I don't actually have like three things that I would just like pick. I think I would actually pick the one as being the narrative, and really encouraging people to think outside of their box about what a good neighborhood is about. And I mean, I can go into that a little bit longer, but I think that's my main one. So I'll stop there. And I'm curious from your perspective. Do you have three things, or do you have one thing, or we're gonna change the whole format
I
here?
mean, I got a list of about 100 things.
Yeah.
I keep lists in my head, but I know I'm very reasonable, and I know we can't fix 1,000 things at once. But definitely, I think just want to state like living in a house gives you a lot of different concerns and experiences than living in like social housing or in a condo, and everybody's stories are going to be different, and I don't want to discount anybody's
Sure.
concerns. My concerns are specific to me, as yours I'm sure are specific to yours. And so one thing that I notice in our area is that we have a lot of breaking and enterings, or just wanderers, people that like
Yeah.
to wander in and through yards. And a lot of times it's just cutting through my yard to get into the alley because maybe they're meeting someone in the alley or whatnot. I'm sure that's what it is. There are times where they stop, they grab something from our yard, and off they go. And I've heard stories, and luckily for me, it hasn't happened to us, but people's houses have been broken into. And part of that I feel like is we need to have a better discussion about how to um, better incorporate the people in downtown and provide services that they need. I feel like there
Sure.
is the downtown mission specifically, and where it's at. To me, it provides an awkward position where you have a lot of people that hang out there. They see it as a hangout spot, but then they close. They kind of just wander into the neighborhoods that
Are we really
surround
gonna get
it.
into the mission on the first episode?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I'm
I'm
just
just
so
kidding.
yeah, no, I'm not, and I'm not meaning to attack the mission specifically. I'm just saying that, like, I feel like it could be better. We can better integrate it, and it's not just
No, I
the
take your
mission
point.
per se. There's a lot of business areas that I feel like could be better integrated with the communities around it. And I think even when you start getting closer to where you live, I feel like there's almost a wall that separates the residence areas there from the businesses, instead of kind of being more inviting and bringing them together. So I just think, as a general, I think some planning, we need some better planning in terms of
Hmm.
making sure neighborhoods mesh well together with the structures around them.
Yeah.
I would like to see also some better. I don't. We can edit some of this out if you think I'm being too controversial, but I also I think honestly, business people. We have Johnny and Steven with the Dog's Breakfast and Squirrel Cage comes to mind. It's Charlie Wright at March 21,
No,
and
Henry.
Henry. Sorry, thank you, Henry. It's been a while since I've been to March
I
21,
know,
and
I
I
haven't been in
have
a
a
while either.
problem with
You just reminded
names.
me. Yeah.
But we have some business people that just absolutely love the downtown, and they work so hard to make it great. But then we've got, and I don't know if they're even in Windsor or not, but we have all these empty businesses. We have empty buildings that aren't businesses, but then we also have businesses that are kind of just there.
Hmm.
And I don't know why they're there. I don't see how they're making money there. I never see people in those stores. And I feel like, I don't know, they
Yeah.
become kind of a darker spot in the downtown. Should I name anything specifically, or
No, I wouldn't. But you know what I would say to
okay?
that last point though. It's interesting as you're talking. I hear all of your like, oh, I wish that this was different, and I think, okay, I have solutions to those problems. But I also think too, like for every one maybe business that's like, I don't want to say a drag or maybe isn't really like providing any benefit to the surrounding neighborhood. I think there are like a few others that are, right? Like this is kind of what I mean by like the downtown being such a mixed bag where it's like, yes, there is this one business owner that's been there forever and they don't take care of their property or like whatever it is. But then there's also people, like Henry, like a bunch of the bars downtown even too that do a lot of good for the neighborhood. So there's like these weird, you know, um, I would say like competing narratives or like competing things where I'm like, how do you change the neighborhood? Well, it's do you accept that complexity and like how you interact with it and like how do you propose solutions to those problems and like I don't know, it's just a thought on like how all the things that we want to change are changeable, and there's also the equal and opposite counterparts already in existence. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a philosophical
Yeah.
question about the,
Well,
the state of the neighborhood.
it is. It absolutely. But like in the general scheme of it, I don't know. I feel like we could support more of those businesses, those people that are doing so much good in terms of the business community. And then my last thing I wish is that we had more support for residents downtown. I feel like as a downtown area, we're more of a tourist attraction, I feel like, to a lot of people than
Right.
people realizing that there's people that live here. There's people that need things downtown that we don't have. And part of it is supply and demand. I get it. I would love to have a nice plum market or a Whole Foods downtown that I can go and get some nice fancy fruit. Yes, absolutely. And I get that's a supply and demand issue. And if there's no demand there, but then there's other things. And I know just like transportation, getting around, having like livable spaces and not just parking lots everywhere. And I feel like parking lots is a perfectly good example. And it's like, it's hard to talk about downtown issues without talking about things that are controversial because it feels like it's always an us versus them, where we're the
Yeah.
us that lives downtown and them is all the people that don't live downtown that see a different narrative of downtown.
Yeah.
I guess maybe awareness would be my biggest thing. Awareness of the businesses that are doing great things, awareness of the residents that live downtown, and awareness of the neighborhoods and the needs that the neighborhoods, not just the resident, but the actual, I don't know, the societal demands of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So
I Okay, I think what I'm going to do is go on to our next question because I think this is a good segue. I do have some
sure,
thoughts about some of the planning that needs to change in our downtown, but I think that that's better suited for
for another
future, yeah,
episode.
for future episodes when we get into transportation. Because I think what you just said is actually kind of the inspiration for this conversation, but it's actually been a couple years coming for you and I. So I guess if you'll allow me, if you're indulge me, I'll jump into maybe why like some of the history of the
Yeah, go
WDNA.
for it. Yes.
So okay, so I guess I'm speaking a bit to the audience here because you and I kind of know this, although I'll probably be reminded of things that I forgot throughout this conversation. I would say like in 2017, maybe 2018, somewhere in there. Matt, what you were a member of the DRA, so which was the Downtown Residents Association, and I was a member of the DWCC, which at the time isn't was a neighborhood group. I mean, it still is, but it's in a different form now. And I was working there actually as the community development coordinator. And I remember one day we were like chatting or something, and we set out that we were like, downtown doesn't have an identity. Like I remember we were like having this whole conversation about like what's the identity of downtown, and we were kind of like there's just so many different pockets of neighborhoods where Victoria Avenue has such a specific identity and vibe. But then if you go over to Weigel Park, where there's like Mercer Street and all those places, that has a really different identity. But those people very much identify with living downtown. And then if you go to where I live now, which is like the Bruce Park area, it has like a bit of a rough, it has a rough vibe to it, different identity for sure. And so we started talking about having this like neighborhood identity project, and we were like going on about it, about how we could kind of like combine the DRA and the
Do you want
DWCC
to
and make a
drop the name that you proposed for that?
I don't I don't remember it. You have to remind me. What was it?
It's NIP.
Oh right. Yes. Yes. I think I remember one day I said that unironically. Let's call it the nip. Yeah. Not my best idea. Or maybe it was the best idea. But anyways, yeah, we were going on this neighborhood identity project, not the acronym. And I think there was some developments with the DRA, um, and we decided to host like a big town hall meeting at the YMCA in response to a lot of the issues that were happening downtown. There were, I think it was like a really hot summer, and this was in like August, and people were really frustrated because the opioid epidemic had kind of exploded a bit, and people were finding needles everywhere, and there was like um, issues with break and entering, as you mentioned, and people like a lot of residents were really frustrated. That was like the feeling in the neighborhood. So we hosted a town hall, and from there we had like committed to kind of like working through this. But at the time, I think shortly after, and you can remind me the history on this, the DRA like folded. Like it essentially like the plan was to. Um, I don't think that there was as much willingness with the leadership to continue it on in the current form. And so there was negotiations with the DWCC to take over the farmers market, to get the farmers market on its feet. And then like the DRA would essentially like not really exist anymore, which you had some thoughts about. I don't know if you want to jump in there.
Well, yeah. So I just a quick statement. So like the DRA board of executive, they decided that they wanted to resign their posts, and they made a formal motion to stop holding meetings. They wanted to dissolve it. Unfortunately, to dissolve the DRA, they needed to host a general meeting for all of the downtown residents to decide that. So the technical aspect of the DRA is that it exists on paper right now, um,
Right,
but the actual board has ceased to continue meeting at this
right,
point,
right,
which brings us into where they kind of the next step, which was, well, we ran out of this residents group, a group that was solely based of people living downtown. What we were left with was the DWCC, and a lot of people right away are like, well, what's the difference between the two? And like when you boil it down, the DWCC is founded in Christian values, and it is
mhm,
comprised of both residents of downtown and experts and people that are engaged with the downtown that might not necessarily live downtown. So
right.
it's
Just to clarify that, my role, for example, is funded through United Way, so I was like strictly in the like neighborhood engagement, community development side of the GWCC. But you're right, it originated from a faith-based group that was focused on like the good of the downtown, but it wasn't necessarily a residents association in the truest sense. So yeah, sorry, continue.
but in the actual effect of the groups, they're essentially kind of working parallel to each other, doing the same things, and that's kind of where a lot of those discussions came. Well, where can we meet together and kind of put our forces together? And ergo the NTIP, we started crossing over, and but anyway, so after the group folded or stopped meeting, the DWCC started initiation with meetings with a group of residents, myself included, yourself as well, and we what was about 2 years that we had those meetings in the library.
Oh, Yeah, I mean, they started off pretty informal. There was a lot of yelling. It was very,
Yeah.
very, it was just, I want to say it was definitely 2018. It would have been 2018 at the beginning, I think. I could go back. Actually, you know what? No, it was late 2017. The first meeting was like November of 2017. And then we met solidly for 2018 and then 2019. And then with the plan was to launch a new organization in 2020, which is what was the intention. I'll jump in to say, I guess, too, that we had done a lot of work with like maybe a core group around 20 residents to actually build out a structure that we felt better represented the actual needs of the neighborhood, and not only a structure but actually like a really good blend of actual action, like a groups dedicated to doing things, and then the groups that were more dedicated to like governance and policy, like advocacy, because we realized that residents had a lot of different interests. Like, Matt and I can talk all day about policies and getting into the nitty gritty of like a constitution for a residents association, but there are a lot of residents downtown who just don't care about that, and they just really want to garden. They want to clean up the alleys. They want to like host parties with their neighbors and have like a forum to fundraise to be able to host events and stuff like that. And we realized that we needed like a bigger umbrella than just like more of a board, so to speak, to kind of capture I think everybody's needs. So we had done like a solid 2 years of meetings of negotiating this. We had a lot of people who dropped out who were like, this is not my thing. And we finally came to, I think, a really good, our last meeting in the beginning of March was like, I thought really was like probably the pinnacle. Like we were like, okay, we're ready to have an AGM. And I remember we even had like a media interview, like you and I were on Tony Doucette, and we were like ready to launch this thing.
Oh yeah, we were revving right up. We were ready to go.
Yeah. Oh man. And then the pandemic happened. Uh,
Yeah.
like literally a week later.
April 1st, wasn't it supposed to be April 1st, our AGM? That
Yeah.
was a
And
bummer.
I I think everybody just went into like panic mode. Like I know I had a panic attack like March, I remember it. So like there's just so much happening, right? Like I just think that it kind of caught everyone off guard. And I know that I'm not the only one with that happened with. So, and a lot of our members, which a lot of people don't know, because I mean, Matt and I are on the computer right now and we're able to function on an online meeting, just did not have the capacity to have any sort of online meeting. Like, and still don't, quite frankly. I don't think all
Or
of our
even if they
residents,
had computers, they
yeah,
might have had the time either, because there's that inequity that a lot
yeah,
of us share, and at different levels. And I think that some of our members were struck with different challenges that me and you don't face. And I
yeah.
think that it's just fair to recognize that, and not just ourselves, but all the downtown residents, that we're all dealing with different struggles in this pandemic.
Yeah. I do want to say too, because I think it is important to note, like Matt and I are obviously, like you and I are speaking from positions of having a lot of having a lot of privilege of, owning our own homes, having, the ability to still work and things like that. And that wasn't the case for everybody. I also think we had a lot of diversity in terms of like socioeconomic status in our group that we did a lot to, I think, work to like make things work for people, which I think was actually some of the my favorite parts, like the hallmark of our group. I think we could always be improving and striving for better on that, but when the pandemic hit, there just wasn't this, like we weren't able to make all those things make sense again and everybody be on the same playing field, because we weren't. So I think we just decided to not obviously have the AGM. And then we were doing some monthly check ins occasionally, but we just kind of put everything on hold, and said, maybe in the summer or the fall, we'll revisit. But I think, I know, and, you're a teacher. I'm a trustee, but I'm also going back to school. Like there's just so much adjustments that had to happen for this year that it wasn't possible for us to then add another thing on. Um, and I also think, and this is something that, you and I have both been passionate about, is like, we don't feel like we can speak for this group until it is actually a formal group and we've been elected into a position to be like, I am the head of the residents association. And that's been hard because over the last 6, or actually now over a year, almost a year, we've had a few opportunities where people have come to us and we're like, well, we're not really representatives of this group because we've never actually ratified the Constitution, and nor do we even have a membership that knows that this is happening. Like, it would be disingenuous to then have this group and it's the members, but we haven't met really. So yeah, so I think that you and I are both sensitive to that. So this group hasn't started really.
Yeah, and I know that's one of our goals. It's been one of our goals, and I remember specifically when the pandemic happened and the lockdown was starting. I remember sending you, was it a text message or an email? But I remember contacting you. I'm like, Sarah, I think we need to cancel the AGM or put it off. And I know I could feel the fight in you. Like, no, we could do this.
Yeah,
We're gonna figure this out. And you had that strength and desire to want to see this through.
I
And
was in
God bless you. I
denial.
mean, like
Yeah,
I but I mean, even Bob, I know that Bob was the same thing where I was like, okay, well, let's officially make a motion that we're gonna delay this indefinitely. And it was not an argument, but a discussion about, well, indefinitely doesn't have an end. I'm like, well, that's what this kind
yeah,
of is. And it's like, no, we are gonna have this, and nobody, like, it was just that everybody wanted it to happen.
yeah. I think
And
it was
I
really
think now,
heartbreaking.
as
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of people dealt with it on their own. I think some people kind of went into a rabbit hole as well because not having tools to deal with it, not having the energy to be continuously disappointed that we don't have this AGM, that there's nowhere to move forward, kind of led us into making this discussion
Yeah,
happen. So I guess we should probably first identify, because I know there's a lot of people that, or hopefully I'm hoping there's a lot of people, there might be only two, and one of them might be my mother. So, but there are hopefully a lot of people
my
watching
mom and
this
your
that
mom.
have never
That's
heard
it.
of the W. Hopefully there's a lot of people that don't know what the WDNA is. So everybody knows, it stands for the Windsor Downtown Neighborhood Alliance. And your thoughts, Sarah, on the name? I know when we picked it, everybody had opinions and discussions. What is your viewpoint on this name?
Right. So part of the work that we did over the 2 years was establishing a name that we felt encapsulated what we were trying to do. I was not there for the naming discussion, and there were some crazy names that came. I forget why I wasn't there, but I remember afterwards being like, "Thank God this is the best one out of all of them," because the other ones were like way low. Like, I was like, I never would have participated in this group. I forget what it was. There's one that's called like the D something. I don't know. It was just, they were bad. No offense. But the WDNA, I think we came to, or you guys, I should say you guys, because I didn't really come to it, but I liked it. Was I really felt like the downtown is a group, like is a network of neighborhoods. Like, it's not one total neighborhood. It's like actually a bunch of little neighborhoods. There's some really big dividing lines with like Olette and Wyandotte, which don't have the best crossings, which we can talk about later because we have a lot to say on that. But so there's some natural barriers that then allow people to feel like this is a neighborhood and this is a neighborhood and that's a neighborhood, and I shop here and you shop there, and whatever. We had tried to bring all of those people together and have like a better geographic representation than instead of just like a little pocket. And so I think the word neighborhood really encapsulates that. And then I think alliance does too. There was a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, visions, goals for this group. Some of them were around like, I just want to do a lot of work in the neighborhood. I want to get stuff done. And other people were like, I want to have a group that advocates, and like, and then there's another, even still, that I think group of people are like, I just want to have like social get-togethers. And so I think the word alliance really encapsulates that. And I think, it was important for us to rebrand or rename, and be separate from both the DWCC and the DRA. Because if we had just, become assumed under those other names, that the intention was to launch and be a new thing and to be like, we're doing it differently. We're a residence group, but we're also a neighborhood group, and we're doing it differently. And so, anyways, I do like the name. I'm curious as to your thoughts. Were you at that meeting? I missed that one.
Yeah, I was there, and I don't remember if it was the one I chaired or not. I'm trying. I right about that time, and we all took turns chairing the meetings, and one of them I did chair, and I don't remember if that was it or not. But however,
I think it was you
there were a
because I
lot of
wasn't there. Yeah.
so
Anyway.
there was a lot of options, like you said, on the table, and I was trying to listen to everyone and give everyone an opportunity, and then someone brought up, hey, it's like the DNA, because the DNA in a cell kind of like
Mhm.
it programs the rest of the cell. It's the main, it's really what makes the character of the cell. And that's kind of like what the downtown area is for any city, is that the city, it can be great on the outside, but if the inside falls apart, then the city itself loses its character, and the character is kind of defined by that downtown area. So I think that was really that big hug on the name. Once everybody clicked into that, and like, yeah, and as
Yeah.
you said, like it's good to separate it from the downtown residents association, whereas that name kind of invokes that the downtown is just one place and that it's just homogenous, and it really is not. Like,
Mhm.
just the history of the street names from one side of Willette to the other, the idea that you have the McDougall area that was actually being sought after as the downtown area of Windsor. Plus, we had the old downtown Windsor area that caught on fire, and then plus the new area here. Like, there's been so many factions of downtown, and you can still see it between street names, demographics, even housing style. It changes from one pocket to another. So I think, yeah, an alliance of neighborhoods is more what I would see as almost any downtown, but especially Windsor.
Yeah.
So I
I
like
think
it.
Yeah, I think that that was like I forgot about that visual too. There's like a visual component of how it could like affect. We could kind of it's like it's the DNA of the city too, right? Like, and just on that point, actually, there's some really excellent work done by Workforce Windsor Essex that actually talked about how um, talent attraction in like young professionals. One of the actually the most critical factor is having a vibrant downtown, a vibrant city center. That was actually the determining factor. I know the primary researcher on this. It was Julian Villafuerte. He is now doing a planning degree at McGill, but he actually, I remember when he did this research, was like, "Hey, Sarah, did you know this? Like, a lot of people are saying that like the vibrancy of the inner city of like the core of the city, which is our downtown, is like the most important part." I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Everybody wants to go downtown, so there is like a tourist and like identity component where it's like people from all over the city come downtown too, for the riverfront, for the festivals, for the parades. Even for the market now. The market has people coming from outside of our neighborhood, which is, I think, a we used to say on like when you were part of the market too, like if people are coming from outside of the neighborhood specifically to come to the market, we are now a destination. This is a mini festival every Saturday morning. This isn't just people getting their food. This is people enjoying the entertainment. It's stopping for a bite. It's taking pictures. It's all those things. And so, anyways, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but I think we really wanted to highlight the vibrancy. I think too, and that it's the core of the city through that name. So um, I guess this leads us to why we're having this conversation is like what do you want to see? What's the next step for the WDNA, and like what's the inspiration for these conversations? I guess.
Well, when I think of like the next steps for the WDNA, I it's I have so much passion for like this group because we put so much effort into it, and like in my head I'm like, oh, I want to see it like bring in so many more people, more demographics, represent so many people. Oh, I want to have this activity going on. I want to be fighting for this to help our environment and help our security. But then it kind of all needs that first step forward right now. And I really want to see that AGM get started. And I want to see when we're ready and when everybody can safely come together for that AGM, for it to be a just something that we're all excited for, that we're all proud of, and that we're all invested into. And I don't see that happening right now because of the pandemic. But
Yeah.
I do think that a small little step is just starting to reach out and communicate with other people and share our experiences, because we all do have different experiences, but we have a shared experience as well. And I think that that shared experience that we have is really what's going to draw us all together through this pandemic. And it's really easy to feel isolated in a time of literal isolation, but
Yeah.
I think it's important that we know that we're all sharing similar struggles, and we're all sharing similar concerns, and we're all sharing similar, like, I know there's joyous moments in our lives, and we do share as well. And I think that our next step is that we need to start sharing with each other. sharing with each other our struggles, sharing our concerns, and sharing what's been great so far. Because as much as we want to say 2020 was a horrible year, there's been a lot of great things that has happened in 2020, and especially in the states, where you want to look in the states and say everything's horrible. I mean, they elected their first VP female, African American descent, Asian American descent. Like, there's just so many firsts there that are worth celebrating, and I think that a lot of times we can forget about those things. So for me, our next step, or my next step, I don't know who's next step, but
Mm.
the next step I would like to see, I'd like to see some more voices. I'd like to talk, and I'd like to really put this forward and be able to share um, this podcast fireside chat. We'll come up with an
Mhm.
identity. I think we're in a bit of we'll have an identity crisis for the
What we're
first
doing
little
here.
bit,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'd like to see this move forward. What about you? Like, when we're putting this pandemic aside, or even during the pandemic right now, because I extended this to you. I said, hey, Sarah, I really think we
Mhm.
at least just need to open up a conversation here. There's not much we can do. But when I said that to you, like, what were your feelings? And then, like,
Yeah.
explain, talk to me as you came around. What changed, and what made you think, okay, there's a future? What is that future?
Yeah, I remember when you texted me. You texted me on New Year's Eve day. I just want to point out at like 5 p.m. I'm like, what? Like, I guess nobody's doing anything, but I was like, you're really thinking about this for like the new year. But I remember getting a text message and I was like, I have no capacity to think about this right now. Like, that's just how I felt. And I mean, personally, I guess if we're sharing, in the month of December, actually late November, early December, I had both broken my ankle and then been rear-ended in a car accident, both unrelated, but both causing a lot of obviously physical medical issues. And I'd spent like the entire month like just doing that and also writing final papers and also preparing for like, Christmas, which was going to be weird with just me and, my daughter. So um it was there was a lot of stuff like that and so when you texted me, I was like, I have no capacity for this. But I let it sink in for like a week, and then you emailed me because I didn't respond actually. And you're like, hey, did you get my text? And then I responded and I was like, I'm open to hearing what you have to say. And you were like, I just want to do some informal conversations where we can start talking about the issues in the downtown. Just start, yeah, sharing what's going on, because obviously the pandemic has changed a lot of people, like our lives, but we don't know what that looks like collectively, right? And I think, you were like, what if we do these like recorded conversations? And I'm like, this is actually kind of cool because it gives us the chance to talk through things and give people maybe the opportunity and the insight to you know understand something a little bit different about the downtown if they don't live here, or to engage with it if eventually we move to like a Facebook live format. I don't know, that's like phase 2 maybe. But I think I got excited about the idea because I was like, uh, I mean, just full disclosure, I've always wanted to have a podcast. This is my chance. But uh, no, I just thought it'd be good to have this conversation. And I think one of the things too that I'll add is we had 4 working groups that were part of the structure of the WDNA. They were like community engagement and like social events, transportation or active transportation, um, safety and security, and environment. And the reason why we did that was because there was a lot of issues that would happen, and we needed like a place with like a more dedicated like subcommittee essentially structure. We called them working groups, to like do those things. And we started on certain things with each of those working groups. And we thought, as you and I were chatting, we were like, what if we used each of those working groups as kind of like a launch point for a conversation with maybe some of those members, if they are willing and available and they can connect, virtually. So I think that was like the direction that I was like, that's actually a really good way to start talking about what's going on with the environment downtown, like environmental issues, like community gardens, or like, you know, just anything related to that. So I think there's some good insight that can be, learned, talked about, advocated for. The world is still moving. The city is still doing things. They're still making decisions. Like, things haven't, totally ended. So, I think as you and I, as kind of like co-leaders in the DRA DWCC blend experiment thing, Frankenstein. um, it's kind of incumbent upon us to maybe keep the conversation going and kickstart this thing, and then if we can develop some, what's the word, activity, interaction, all those things, then maybe, yeah, we're eventually will be ready for an AGM, and the pandemic won't be taking its toll on all of us so much. But at least we've kept the conversation going, I guess. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and I think, well, hopefully the next one we do, we can bring someone else in here, and that to me is a great next step. Is just one person at a time, two people at a time. Like just start bringing people into the fold. I mean, hopefully we can get someone. Otherwise, it might be my mom over here talking about transportation. I don't know,
Yeah.
but we'll hopefully be able to sell it to somebody a little bit more involved in our environment. And I'm not quite sure who it's going to be yet. We'll have to plan things out, but absolutely. Like, and I hope the people that are watching this, because our plan is to release, what did we say, 4 of these or 5 of these?
Yeah, I think we
I
were going to
forget the
aim for
number now, but there
five
was a set amount.
conversations. Yeah, five, I think.
So hopefully that the people that are watching, they at least are a little bit interested in, and they'll keep listening. I mean, and I totally get that in terms of representation, we are not representative of anything but us. I know myself, and I'm very aware. I'm a white Christian male, and I know that that comes with certain powers and benefits to it, and I acknowledge that. And I don't want people feeling turned off because we aren't like them. And we want to bring more of those people into the conversation, absolutely. And I hope that as we move forward, we can have some of those voices, and we can in future, what do we call them,
Yeah.
episodes, chats, socializations.
Yeah, I think I would add to that disclaimer too, like, one of the things that the downtown is known for, and I think, we're proud of, is the diversity of people groups that live down here. The YMCA it's their newcomer settlement center. It's settlement assessment center. They have a name for it, and I'm butchering it, but that's right down the street from you. Actually, both of us. It's 500 block of Victoria. So um, there's there's so many different people of different, and then there's we didn't even touch like the condo buildings, and then there's the different neighborhoods, and there's just such a diversity of people that and also people are very passionate about the downtown too. There's a lot of people who have lived here for 30, 40, 50 years and have a lot to say too, and I think those stories are very powerful too, with people have seen the neighborhood ebb and flow and what those changes have brought and everything. So I agree. I would love to see our conversations represent that diversity and really understand what happens in our neighborhood from all different walks of life, and really tease out, like, different things. I don't know who we're going to cast, how wide we'll cast this net at first, but hopefully over time
It
we
is
can
our
maybe develop
intention.
it. Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so I think that's the goal, and this is, I think, our first episode, and I don't know, you got anything else to add?
No, I just I pray for more than just 2 viewers.
I don't care. You know what? I was saying this to a friend the other day. I like to do things for the pure enjoyment of them. If nobody pays attention, or gives a crap about it, I'm fine with that. Because if, like, I always enjoy talking with you. Like, Matt, you and I have had a number of conversations where we've gotten into heated debates over like things, and it's like a 2 hour conversation that should have been 30 minutes. So I expect some of that in the future, but no, I enjoy just, having conversations. So I'm happy to kind of keep this thing going in that way. So
Okay, well, I guess we can say adieu at that point, and we'll hopefully the next one we'll put out no problem. And secret topic, because I have no idea what it is right
yeah,
now.
we have some ideas, but I don't know what the next one is actually going to be yet. So it'll be one of those ideas that we kind of gave a little bit of a teaser for. So yeah, and I don't know when either. There's no schedule. We're making it up. So, but anyways, I think that
All
that's
right,
it for now. So
you
yeah,
want to stop the recording here, and then we can edit